Let's have a look at this problem, which has a fraction to a power. The first thing you should do is look inside and make sure that there's nothing in there that you can simplify. And there's not. So we're going to treat this problem as a fraction to a power. And the rule is take that outside exponent to the numerator and to the denominator. So we'll make two smaller problems. All right, there are two approaches from here. I'll work it separately with both. One thing that you could do, because both of these outside exponents are negative, you could shift the entire parentheses, and they're just going to trade places for this outside exponent. So we'll go that route for our first method. Everything inside stays the same. The outside exponent becomes positive, and this one that's down is going up. Outside exponent becomes positive. And now we'll work on each piece there. On our numerator, that is a product to the power. So we're going to have to take that outside exponent down to each piece. And I'm going to have to go down so I can keep it on my screen. So I'm going to have 2 squared x to the 7th squared. And I can keep working that. 2 squared gives me 4. And x to the 7th squared, power to a power, keep the base and multiply. So I get x to the 14th. Right, now go to the denominator. This outside exponent is going to each piece. So I have -3 squared. You want to use parentheses because you want the sign to go to the power. Originally it is inside, so it needs to stay inside. And you have y to the 4th squared. -3 squared is -3 times -3 gives you a +9. And power to a power on the y, keep the base and multiply the exponents. For the other approach to this problem, we would first still treat it as a fraction to a power and change it into two problems, the numerator and denominator. So we'll take that exponent with our numerator and also with our denominator. The next step is the one that's different. Instead of shifting these right away, if you chose, you could clean each one up. And so the numerator is a product to a power. You could distribute that power down to each one. And so that would be a -3 to the -2 power. And it would be y to the 4th to the -2 power. We cannot work out the -3 to the -2 power. A number to a negative power you have to shift before you can work it out. So it's going to move down and get a positive exponent. This y we can work out, and that will be y to the -8. We'll leave it there for right now. Go to our denominator, and it is a product to a power, so we can take the outside exponent to each one. So we have 2 to the -2 and x to the 7th to the -2. The 2 to the -2 is a number to a negative power. We can't work it until we shift it. So we're going to shift it up, and it will get a +2 on the outside. And our x we can work out will give us x to the -14. And now we'll finish those up. So we have 2 squared gives us 4 on the numerator, and we'll just keep this one for a minute. On the denominator, -3 squared gives us a 9, and we still have the x. And then the x and the y are going to switch places because they both have a negative exponent. So my x is going up, gets a +14, and my y is going down. So it doesn't matter if you use this approach or if you use the first one, which actually moves the entire parentheses for that outside exponent. For this example, it is a fraction to a power. What you want to notice, though, is that you have some things inside that are alike. You should clean those up first before you deal with the outside exponent. So we'll work on the inside, and we're still going to be in the parentheses. So first of all, for our a's, we have a fraction form. Your rule is keep the base and subtract. So we have a to the 5 minus 7 gives us a to the negative 2, which is going to make it go to the denominator. And we won't write the 1 right away. We might get something else there and not need it. For the b's, your rule is subtract top to bottom, or you could shift this with the negative up. It's going to give you b to the 3rd. Either way that you go, 1 minus a negative 2, minus a negative makes plus, so it gives you b to the 3rd, positive exponent, so it goes on the numerator. And now we have a fraction to a power, so we'll break it apart into numerator and denominator, taking the outside exponent with each. So we have 2 little problems instead of 1 big one. We can go ahead and work these out, or you could shift the whole parentheses. It doesn't matter. If we work them out, power to a power, keep the base and multiply, gives me b to the negative 9. And on the denominator, a to the negative 6. And now they're both negative, so they're going to switch places. This one's going down, and this one is going up. So I'm going to have a to the positive 6 on the numerator and b to the positive 9 on the denominator. So if you see anything on the inside of a big parentheses that will clean up, you should work from the inside out and clean up first. And now our last example from the handout. We do have a fraction to a power. You will need to let this negative either go with the numerator or denominator because you're going to break it apart and make 2 problems. So I'm going to go ahead and take the negative with the numerator. So I have negative 1 to the negative 2, and I have 8 to the negative 2. Now, because the inside part here is a number to a negative power you cannot do. So these are actually going to have to shift before you can do any more work because the outside exponent is negative for both. It is not going to change anything on the inside. So we're going to have 8 to the positive 2. We still have negative 1, but now it's to the positive 2. We can work those out. 8 squared gives us 64. And negative 1 squared is negative 1 times negative 1 gives us a positive 1. And 64 divided by 1 gives us 64.